Hi and welcome to Cooking with a Hug. I'm Jennifer and this is Fiona.
Hello.
We're at the food bank in Lymington and we're hopefully going to show you how to cook with the ingredients that we have here. It's economical, it's fun, hopefully you'll find it easy, hopefully we'll be able to help you navigate around these ingredients. So let's get started.
What I'm going to do today is I'm going to do a vegetable soup with carrots, a tin of pulses. You can use lentils depending on what you get from your food box. A couple of things you might not normally think of putting in is apples and also pears, but today I'm just going to put apples in.
It's got a good store kind of basic sort of thing to have. You could sort of, if you make a lot of it, you can then freeze it. So a bit later on when you come in, school run, you're a bit cold, you're a bit tired, stick it in the microwave, stick it on a pan. It's easily done.
It's easy and it's a very basic thing to make, and once you get confident maybe trying a little bit different with a soup, it leads on to so many different things with the ingredients that you're given. So that's what we're up to today. So I'm going to start by just chopping the vegetables and putting them in. Now I'm of a person that I leave the skin on because the goodness in fresh fruit and veg is directly under the skin. So what we're trying to do is to give you something that's nutritionally good as much as filling and tasty. So we can take the dried ingredients and we can take the tinned ingredients and make it into something a little bit more fun, because food should be fun in my opinion. So,
and also the vegetables that nobody else will eat in the house, I always put into the soup and disguise it. And the idea of the apple, just to let you know, is to give it a bit of sweetness so the kids will eat it. You know, my kids now eat soup with apple and they don't know there's apple in it because I'll whiz it up. It's a great way of getting them to eat soup. Fee, talk me through, what have you done so far? Looking lovely, colourful.
I've got some vegetable oil in the pan with some onions and some chopped carrots. Like I said, leave the skin on. The best of the goodness in most fruit and vegetable is just under the skin. You peel it, you lose most of it. Now carrots are sweet, they're lovely, you can put them in everything. Bolognese, soups, wonderful stuff. The difference today is we're going to add a couple of apples. Apples are great for kids because they sweeten everything. So it makes it more possibly appetising. With a tin soup, there's lots of salt and lots of sugars in it that are not necessarily good for you as opposed to the fresh ingredients that give you the same thing. So the best way to do an apple is down the middle, turn it over so it doesn't rock, and then you can cut yourself, slice it down the middle again, and then just take out the core, because that you don't want in there.
This is smelling great. How long will this take normally?
Should take about 10 minutes just to soften up. Now the idea is with this is that the carrot will give you bulk. If you want to bulk up your soup even more, add a couple of potatoes, and that will thicken it naturally. You never add flour to a soup. You don't need to. The vegetables will thicken it up. So I always peel a potato, but I don't peel carrots. Now if you're trying to feed a family of 6, like I do, on a budget, potatoes are wonderful things to bulk stuff out with. So,
and who doesn't love a potato?
And who doesn't love a spud? I love a spud.
Mr. Potato Man, in you go.
Right, again, if you cut everything up the same size, it generally takes the same time to cook. So that's a rule of thumb when you're cooking things. Obviously some things do take a little bit longer, but generally speaking, if everything's the same size, it'll take the same time to cook, and then you don't end up with hard bits in your soup. There's nothing worse than hard lumps in mashed potato.
And seasoning. Are you going to put seasoning in?
I'm going to put in, now we've got stocks. We've got 2 kinds of stock. You might get a cube, which is great, or you might get one of these, which is a jelly cube. Now I use the jelly ones because I find them easier. So that will do a pint of stock, and it's really, really good quality. It's tasty and it adds lots of seasoning. Sometimes if you haven't got herbs, we've got some herbs today, but you're not always going to have herbs in the box, so I will add a few today, but these generally add salt, seasoning, herbs, and they're really good.
And this is the same thing, isn't it?
Exactly the same thing, but in a cube as opposed to a jelly.
And how would I use that one? See?
Well, I crumble it into, but they do say on the box to crumble it into hot water, boiling water from a kettle. I personally chuck it in there, crumbled up, and then add the water to the stock. So it just means if you don't have a jug or a pot or something big enough, you know roughly how much.
Less washing up.
Less washing up. I'm very much a one pot person. I do like one pot meals. Now today I'm going to use the cube because that's generally what you're going to get. So we'll have that there, and I'm going to open the mixed herbs. You might not get herbs, but again, in these, they've generally got herbs in them, so that's quite useful.
And how long are we cooking this on the pan for then, please?
We're cooking this until it starts to get a little bit of colour, and which is about 5 minutes. It's finally decided to connect with my pot, so we do. Now I haven't added the apples yet because the apples will take less time to cook even though they're the same size. Like I said, some things generally will take a little less or a little more. Now, one of the tips about making soup, cooking vegetables, whatever it is that you're doing, if you use water that's boiled from the kettle, it takes less time to cook, so it means you're using less power. Right, that's gone in. I'm going to add the apple now, because as you know, apples go a funny colour if you leave them out cooking too long. And at this point, I'm going to add the herbs. Now, it's a funny old thing, herbs. When you dry them, they become more concentrated, so you need a lot less. So one of those should last you ages. And also, when you use them, if you bruise them, because they've been dried, so you need to try and get the oil out of them again. And it's that simple. Put it in your hand and squeeze it together. And it just gets them moving again, gets them back in. Right, Jennifer, my happy assistant, my charming assistant.
What about your stock cube?
A stock cube, I will add after you've done that. So what you want to do is add enough water to cover, just to cover. And again, it's all about the length of time. If you filled, it will make enough to fill the pot. But if you fill the pot now, it'll take longer to cook. So the idea is you can thin it down later, and it's all about the time and the amount of power and all the rest of it. So now the water's in, I'm just going to crumble this. I mean, they don't, because they're sort of waxy, as it were, they don't crumble like an OXO cube used to. But, you know.
Who remembers OXO cubes?
I do remember OXO cubes.
Give it a good stir in.
So give it a good stir in, and basically that's what you need. And then you're going to leave that for about 10 to 15 minutes is all it's going to take to cook. Now what I would do then is I would blend it. Now I've got a blender with me, which I use at home when I'm making soups. Now it's a rather large one because I tend to make big cauldrons of soup because that's what I do.
Family.
Big family. But these are very easy to get hold of. They're not expensive. You can buy them in Tesco's for a £5. But I think they are brilliant. I use them for more than just soup.
And if you haven't got a blender, when it's soft, you can just
Get a potato masher.
Potato masher
Does the same thing.
does exactly the same thing.
But I won't use this now, but what we're going to do is we're going to come back to that and we'll blend it later. So the soup is now cooked, and I'm going to use my blender because it's easy. And then you don't. The thing is, if you get liquidizers and all sorts of things, it means more things to wash up. It means. Now, turn the pot on the side. Hang on, I'm going to move my woodley spoon, otherwise I'm going to lose it. And this takes a matter of minutes, seconds, really. I personally like chunks in it, so I'm not going to completely puree it. But you can if you don't. Now you can see how thick this is getting. So this is when you can thin it down. Could you get me another? Right, so I'm leaving a few chunks in there because I like it chunky. So I'm going to leave it like that. Oops. Now I'm going to thin it down with about the same amount of water So now we've doubled and that's when we put in the beans. Now the beans will take about 5 minutes cooking. And once you've pureed it and you've let it down, it doesn't sort of explode like Vesuvius, which it does have a tendency to do when you've got thick purees. So I would then leave it at that and have that as it is. But if your kids don't like pulses and you know they're going to be a bit hinky about this, then you just blend them all together, and then that will thicken it even more, and then you can add a little bit more water, and then it goes even further. But that is a great easy soup, and I hope you enjoy it. And also you don't have to, it doesn't have to be mixed beans, it can be lentils, it can be chickpeas, depends on what you've got available and what you like to eat.
Right, thank you for watching Cook with a Hug. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you got something from it. Tune in next time for our next lot of recipes. See you soon.